My name is Coley Valley. I use they them pronouns. I'm from Texas. I identify as non-binary.
My name is Lee Romaker. I am a sophomore studying community health and women's gender and sexuality studies. I use he series or they series pronouns, leaning a little more towards they these days, but it's our like biannual gender crisis, how it is. I am from Columbus, Ohio.
So my name is Theseus Lim. I'm 18 years old. I'm a freshman from Syracuse-ish area in upstate New York. I use he/him pronouns, and I identify as a transgender male.
For the longest time, I thought it was just because I was like a lesbian. But then like right before college, actually, I was like, oh, I'm like a much more masculine individual than I'm like giving myself credit for here. And so like it was sort of like accepting that like masculine part of myself. But like initially it was like I realized that I was like a masculine individual, and I thought like, oh, I guess that means that I'm like a trans man, right? And so for about a year I identified as like a trans man, and I was just kind of like running away from like the more feminine aspects of myself, because even though I am an innately masculine individual, like there's still certain aspects of myself that are really feminine, and like the parts of my identity that are really feminine, and so sort of learning to accept that feminine side of myself was kind of difficult, kind of really difficult actually. It's only recently that I've been able to like sort of reconcile those two things and be like, oh, I'm neither binary, I'm like not a woman or a man, and so I don't quite have it all figured out, but I think non-binary is just like a really good umbrella term that I think encapsulates.
The thing was is that I went to a Catholic school as a young kid, and that's been a huge part of like my story, my identity, my religious identity, my sense of humor, the people that I relate to, the kind of art I love. Like it's had a huge part of me. I grew up going to Catholic school and being part of a Catholic community, and that was my whole world. And it was very tough, not only when like society and media in general tell you that you're other, that you're different, that there might be something wrong with you potentially, like that is hard enough, but also to have like the compounding of a religion saying like you're never gonna go to heaven with like your family and your friends, you're never gonna be what God wanted. That was really, really difficult. And so I not only had to accept myself as a queer person, but I also would accept myself as somebody who was like a good person, which I think is not that unique as a queer person, but for me it was very difficult because I went through a lot of it alone. And ultimately I decided that at like the ripe age of 13, I made the choice of like, any religion that's telling me that no matter what I do, I'm a bad person, that's not it's not right. It's not the right religion for me. Gender identity was different. I would say probably easier just because I was older and I'd been through it before. The thing is that I came out as queer, and I committed to going to an all-girls high school. That was secular, so I didn't have to worry about religion or anything like that. But it was an all-girls high school, and then a month after I committed to going to that high school, I was like, I don't think I'm a girl. And I was like, God, this is going to be tough.
When I was a freshman in high school, I like came out as bisexual, and so obviously I knew what like LGBT meant, but I was just like, oh, trans people exist. Couldn't be me. But then I think junior year of high school, I started like questioning it, and I had a friend, and so I thought I was like gender fluid because I read this book with a gender fluid character, and I told my friend, oh, just like ask me what pronouns I want to use each morning. And then it had been like a month, and she was like, you've used male pronouns every day. I was like, oh shit, you're right.
I met this trans guy, and he's like, he's really nice first off, but he's also like a little larger, like I'm a little larger, and he's also really feminine, dresses really colorfully, which I think is really important, and he expresses himself in the way that I really want to like express myself in the future, and so meeting him, I was like, oh, this is like somebody that is like living the way I want to live, and like I could be this person, I could be this type of feminine, you know. And so meeting him was really, really helpful and sort of like learning to tell myself like I don't have to be completely masculine all the time. I can be a feminine person and still be like trans, because that was like my big fear, right? I was like, if I accept this feminine part of myself, I'm essentially like admitting to myself like, oh, you're just a woman, which isn't true at all. I can be both.
Well, the first thing I did was like cut my hair, and that was very nice. And then, well, that was like before I was out to my parents, and they just thought I wanted to like cut it. I think I told them I was tired of brushing it, and they were like, oh, that's cute. And then, I mean, I always like dressed fairly masculine. Like, I didn't really change the way I dress, I guess. But yeah, I started testosterone last June, and that helped a lot.
I wore a uniform from ages 5 to 18. So I came to college and I didn't know how to dress myself, especially at a liberal arts college where a lot of folks like are really fashionable or very trendy. I wore jorts and floral button-ups. It was a bit rough. But now I, am much more confident in the things that I wear. I dress a little more punk, which allows me to be like masculine, but still accessorized and not boring. And I'm really proud of that. So I'm really comfortable in how I dress now, which is good.
I'll like sit in my room for long periods of time and I'll like not wear my binder, and it's like, cause it's comfy, but then I'll feel like awful all the time, and I'm like, why do I feel so bad right now? And then I'll put on my binder and it'll be like, oh that's why. And then I feel so powerful. I'm like, yes, I'm like, I feel on top of the world right now. And so I think that's one of those times.
I think like if going to like a restaurant or like meeting strangers and they're like, oh, like what can I get you, sir? I'm just like, yes.
Coming to college was like really, really like important for me, because now all of my friends are some flavor of trans, or some flavor of queer, and so it just makes me feel really like validated, like, oh yeah, there is a community here for me, and I can feel seen in like a community that is like me, and it's just been really great. I also have something in Hodgdon, because that was my freshman dorm. The floor that I lived on had like a little like nook. I don't know if it was a nook, but it was like where the storage closet was, and so it was like a locked door and then like a slight indent in the wall. It was like probably not bigger than this couch here, and every single day, like, that was where my friends and I would hang out, we would just sit on the floor in front of the storage closet, which is just very, very, very unique of us.
What would it be? Oh my god!
That was where a lot of moments that were very queer and like integral in my queer experience happened. That was where I came out to my friends. That was where one of my friends came out to us. It's all very this is just the space.
I think I live in the Jewish Cultural House now, and 6 out of the 9 of the people that live there, we have become really close this semester, which is exciting because a lot of us didn't live there last semester. We've only become friends the past few weeks, and the 6 of the 9 of us, we're the ones that like leave our room. The rest like don't super leave their room, and we have all become really close, and we're all queer. And so hanging out in the Jewish Cultural House common room is so comforting to me, because I know I'm going to find somebody that is accepting and loving and a friend. And, living on my own last semester, that I didn't have that guarantee, and it's been super nice.
Like, I haven't really, because, I mean, I know people at Tufts who are queer, but I don't have, like, a group of just queer friends. So, I would say no.
Experiencing that sort of connection with people that are going through the same thing, right? And sort of building that community and building those connections and sort of experiencing that sort of solidarity that I think is very uniquely like queer, that I think is really important. And I think that feeling of like connection and sort of like shared sense of like identity
A lot of it is being free of the gaze or the expectations or the need to explain yourself to cisgender people or heterosexual people. You don't have to explain yourself. You don't have to shrink yourself. You don't have to simplify yourself. You know, I often have to have like a shorthand explanation for my gender identity or my sexuality, and around other trans people, like around other queer people, your identity doesn't have to make sense. It doesn't have to be justified. It doesn't have to be explained. It can just be. You can explore, you can play, you can be out of the box, you can be confusing and contradictory and still be happy and having fun. You know, you don't have to make sense. You just have to be who you are.
I feel like it's like not like trying to fit in, just like fitting in without trying. And I know there are like trans people who are like, oh, you're like trying to like assimilate yourself. But I mean, I feel like I'm like male first and then trans. Like, I've always acted like kind of like a guy, like for better or worse. And it's like I just also happen to be trans.